Thank you, Eric, for setting the good stage for me. I would like to continue in the same vein, give a little bit overview of the situation we have in this topic. As you probably know, one of the biggest problems we have of the world right now has to do with this balance between getting clean environment in a sustainable way so that you don't get too sick and you have more ethical health problems and medical thing. At the same time, various countries would like to have security for their energy, which depends, as Eric pointed out, coming from drill for petroleum, which is the fuels which is generating these carcinogens and other toxic products which cause a lot of health problems. Of course, this dilemma is discussed everywhere. And like these things which have these global discussions, you have a lot of hype. And so as students, I'm one of a student as well, I read this stuff and I kind of figure out which is hype and which is reality. And this hype is coming not only from journalists, but even some of the researchers. You probably know very well that we've been talking almost how many years, Trevor, about cellulosic ethanol? Many, many years. And you read every time that some company is going to build this plant somewhere. We still don't have one. The good news, though, within the last 3 weeks only, DuPont is jumped into it, and they're going to build a plant in Iowa. I don't know if you know that. So why am I saying this is good news? Because there are over 24 so-called bioenergy companies, mostly the US, Canada, and Europe. And when you have 24 companies saying they're doing this, it's very difficult to know what reality is. So the good news, as I said, is that DuPont is jumped in, and they have a lot of big, deep pockets, so you have money. And the other one, which I also consult for both these companies, is DSM, which is a big Dutch-based company. And I've just told over dinner last night, Dave, I've lost my bet with the engineer there because I had a bet with him a year ago that they won't have this plant there. So I've got to buy him for a beer next time I see him. So there also will open a cellulosic ethanol plant there. I'm talking about this with Trevor because he and I talked about this quite a while ago. Where is all this ethanol thing? So as I said, we have to remember, as students and others, when you read the literature, what is reality and so on. Now, of course, we all dream about a green industrial world. And this green world has to do, as Eric pointed out, recycling the material that we have. In this case, of course, the renewable material is usually biomass, which is generated from the eternal energy source, which is sun. And if you have these products and you eat your tofu or your beef and you do digestion, you burp and you make carbon dioxide. If you burn it, you're also going to make carbon dioxide. So Eric was quite right to point out that this is a cycle which we need to materialize as much as we can. And of course, us, when I said us, me and some of my colleagues who are in biotechnology, we are thinking that biotechnology is one of the ways of getting this to be realized. Now, as students, I'm sure you could think of many biomass that could be used. Is doing this green biofuels realistic? Well, when you think about it, to generate the feedstock to make biomass by agriculture, and if you do the calculations, if your scientists, engineers do the mass balance, energy, It doesn't make sense at all, because you have to make the seeds to make these plants. You have tractors which are going to use petroleum to run it. You have harvesting. You have community. But you do the balance, as a couple of scientists pointed out a couple of years in their article, it doesn't make sense. So you're going to ask me, well, how come we're doing that then? The usual way. You and I, with taxpayers' monies, the government will subsidize it up to 40%. So I'm pointing this out that it looks good, but we have to remember that it's not so realistic. Now, if I understand, talking over David last night over dinner, over beer actually, his company is looking at the way that Eric pointed out. Look at these residues, the waste, to, in some ways, is a displaced resource, really. So by doing that, I'm looking forward to hear your talk, we'll kill two birds with one stone. We've taken care of the pollutions, the residues, and then going to make biofuels which will not cause these greenhouse gases which cause climate change, cancers, and so on. So if we switch though from looking at the waste, which may not be enough, because not many countries, so far as I know, the only country in the world, this is Germany, has a law which says you must look what they call cradle to grave production. So if you buy some German car, for example, all those things must be recyclable. Why are more countries doing this? Because it has to do with this national energy security. They'd rather, at this point in time anyway, have pollution and cause you sickness, but they can run the factories. China is a classic example. I'm sorry, I'm ethnic Chinese, so I could say this. China is doing a lot of bad pollution because they're worried about their energy security. One thing that could happen, and I'm old enough to think a little bit psychologically, philosophically, I guess, apart from being an engineer, many people have been talking about lifestyle changes. I don't think it will be in my generation, but you young students, how much will you be prepared to sacrifice the type of lifestyle that you're doing, which is very energy intensive and waste production? I listened to a Nobel Prize speaker the other day, and he was saying this thing, and I thought, yeah, I thought I was thinking the same thing, but I'm not a Nobel Prize winner. This guy says that maybe somebody will pay attention to what he's saying. He said he needs some kind of a shift in lifestyle. Of course, he's a scientist, and so he was not so sure he would be able to make an effect on this societal changes like this. Anyway, these are some questions that I could throw up with you for the coffee break afterwards, so we could proceed it further. So this ideal world then is very difficult to achieve, but I think as scientists, engineers, we should look at some technologies, and biotechnology is one of them, because biotechnology is a very benign type of technology with due respect to chemistry. And by the way, I was telling Eric, my first degree is in chemistry. People don't remember that. So it's more drastic. And a lot of byproducts which are not very desirable. Biological conversion is no more specific, many less dangerous byproducts. And as I said, it's more benign, low temperature, low pH, and so on. So I guess what I'm trying to say in this as a footnote, that we should be looking more in biotechnology. So how can we do that? Well, talking about bioengineering, this is just a summary of what Eric was saying. We want to look at bio-renewable. But according to the Energy Information Administration, and this is 2010, but I went to the website last night, and it's the same, basically this pie chart. It's not very much impact on the energy thing, renewable energy. Only 2%. Still, all the way from petroleum, coal is still there. Nuclear is very small. And unfortunately, because of the Japan catastrophe, the plan which a lot of countries had to use more nuclear energy had a problem. So it hasn't moved. The plan was to go higher. And talking about France, France have had over 80% of their energy from nuclear energy. They've never had anything like 3 Mile accident or Ukraine what. So obviously it can be done safely. So again, as students coming up to be in charge, will you be prepared to say to your company, in your company when you become CEO, we need to look in some nuclear energy? You see, nuclear energy is one of the cleanest energy source. Now, when you're going to say, but you could accidents, but as I just said, if you're careful, you could control it. So I'm trying to say, see if we could move this more, and see if we could move this more later. So the whole trying to get renewable biomass to make clean biofuel have got a lot of constraints, and I don't have enough time to go through all of them with you. But the biomass, for example, was not created to be easy to be converted into something by biotechnology. Your cottages of wood would fall down quite quickly. It was created to be very recalcitrant. So as scientists, we got to find ways to convert cellulosic material into fermentable sugars to make the biofuels. The biofuels, the one right now is ethanol. You go to the gas pump, as Eric showed on the diagram, you see up to 10% ethanol. Then you'll say to myself, why can't we have more of that if it's so good? It's very difficult. Those of you who are chemists, a chemical engineer, it's hygroscopic, it causes corrosion, it causes a lot of problems. Ethanol, inflammable. So as researchers, we have to look at other biofuels. One of them is biobutanol, which will not have this kind of problem. It's not hygroscopic. You could use the existing pipelines, and you could use the storages. So I know that a couple of my students are looking at this, but it's difficult because they have to know some innovations to get hosts. They could generate butanol in the higher yield and higher, faster than come down. Then you will say, but Murray, how are you guys going to compete with UC Berkeley? And I say, why are you asking that? Well, BP just announced that they're going to give that professor in chemical engineering $50 million to look at butanol. So of course, two students, when we meet, you say, well, we will bear in mind that UC Berkeley got $50 million. We maybe have 5,000. But you guys, I'm looking for Mike, you're pretty good doing this, the genomic engineering to create a better host than these people in Berkeley can do. So David can slay the Goliath sometimes, Mike. So good, you've got a provisional patent applied in there. Hopefully you'll get it, and then Berkeley can't touch that host. without your permission. So that's what they're looking. We need to see if biotechnology could help this get through this dilemma. And of course, the very famous pioneer, Craig Venter. Everybody knows his name because he was the one that deciphered the human genome, beating all the government funded with millions of dollars. And he just said in an interview just a few months ago, we need to have biotechnology, but to do it that will have an impact, you need to have collaborative things, as Eric pointed out, and a multidisciplinary things that CBB is trying to do. So Kathy has got a big job to get a multidisciplinary efforts, and I think this guy is very smart. He wouldn't have said that publicly unless there's some veracity to his prediction. So we could do a little bit here, but according to Craig Venter in the interview I read, to have a significant impact, you gotta have this. So we need innovation, and as all you know, this guy his name is Einstein. Not many people know his name, but he's a pretty clever guy. He said that we could have all this knowledge, but unless you have some innovation using the knowledge, it's not going to move. So you students, you've got a lot of knowledge coming. We give all these professors lectures, but then you have to get another sixth sense, how to get innovation with this knowledge. So I'd like to end my 15 minutes within 13 minutes to say something which Eric, I think, said in his talk. First of all, we have to try to remember that prevention is better than cure. We should need some biofuels to replace some of the greenhouse gases, petroleum sources. And as David will say in his talk, I believe, these waste material that we have, municipal waste and so on, it's really in some ways a misplaced resource. And he's going to tell you how his company could convert some of these stuff to make some useful products. And that's my 15 minutes. Thank you.